The small village of Ravensbrook was surrounded by dense, age-old trees. The locals believed that these trees weren't just old, they were cursed. In the center of this forest stood a large, blackened tree. No leaves grew on it, no birds ever perched there, and its trunk was charred as if it had survived fire. For generations, villagers referred to it in hushed tones as the Blood Tree. Aaron and his cousin Lucas were both 17, adventurous, and tired of the same old ghost stories. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees and the forest turned gold, they dared each other to visit the tree. Ignoring the warnings, they made their way through the thickets, their flashlights barely piercing the gathering darkness. As they approached the massive black tree, a strange silence fell. No rustling of leaves, no chirping of insects, only the sound of their own breathing. Suddenly, Aaron stopped. He thought he heard someone whisper his name from behind the tree. Lucas grabbed his arm and said, "Let's get out of here." But before they could turn, a gust of icy wind rushed past them. The tree's long branches creaked, as if reaching toward them. Then came a whisper, not from the wind, not from any living soul, but from within the tree itself, "You're not supposed to be here." Aaron's legs refused to move. The voice grew louder, closer, though there was no one around. Then from within the hanging branches of the tree, a dark figure emerged, not walking, not floating, but simply appearing. Its face was veiled in shadow, except for two burning red eyes that glowed even in the dark. Gripping Lucas's hand, Aaron yanked him back, and they both ran without looking back. When they finally reached home, they didn't speak of what they saw. But their pale faces told the tale. The next morning, an elder of the village, Father Joseph, summoned Aaron. An old priest and herbalist, he was known to have deep knowledge of the forest's dark past. "You went near the tree, didn't you?" Father Joseph asked, staring into Aaron's eyes. "Do you know that tree isn't just wood and bark? It's a tomb. A prison. That's the Blood Tree." Aaron asked, "What do you mean?" Father Joseph sighed and spoke slowly. "Long ago, a woman named Miriam lived here. They said she could talk to the trees. But the villagers, afraid of her powers, accused her of witchcraft and burned her alive under that very tree. Since then, her soul, and the souls of others like her, have been trapped within." Lucas interrupted, "But those are just old stories, right?" Father Joseph shook his head. "A story is something that ends. This one is still very much alive. That shadow you saw, it has seen you too. And it never forgets." That night, as Aaron lay in bed trying to sleep, he saw them again, those red eyes glowing outside his window, and a voice whispering, "Come back. The tree remembers you." The next morning, Aaron felt uneasy. The memory of those eyes haunted him. As he went to wash up and looked in the mirror, he noticed something strange on his neck, a faint, black streak, like a burn mark drawn with ash. Lucas had his own story to tell. He claimed he heard footsteps on his roof all night, slow, heavy, and deliberate. That's when they both decided they couldn't ignore it anymore. They needed to understand what the tree was, and what it wanted. Back at Father Joseph's cottage, they revealed everything. The priest nodded grimly. "You've awakened the tree. It was asleep, but now it remembers your scent." He opened an old trunk filled with withered scrolls, talismans, and a small wooden figurine, burned but intact. "This is all that remains of Miriam," he said. "It must be buried beneath the tree once more. But you must never go there at night. That's when the tree is fully awake." The next morning, Aaron felt uneasy. The memory of those eyes haunted him. As he went to wash up and looked in the mirror, he noticed something strange on his neck, a faint, black streak, like a burn mark drawn with ash. Lucas had his own story to tell. He claimed he heard footsteps on his roof all night, slow, heavy, and deliberate. That's when they both decided they couldn't ignore it anymore. They needed to understand what the tree was, and what it wanted. Back at Father Joseph's cottage, they revealed everything. The priest nodded grimly. "You've awakened the tree. It was asleep, but now It remembers your scent. He opened an old trunk filled with withered scrolls, talismans, and a small wooden figurine, burned but intact. This is all that remains of Miriam, he said. It must be buried beneath the tree once more. But you must never go there at night. That's when the tree is fully awake. That night, Aaron couldn't sleep. In his dreams, he was standing beneath the blood tree again, only this time, the sky was blood red, the wind carried screams, and the roots beneath his feet squirmed like snakes. In front of him stood Miriam, the woman from Father Joseph's tale. Half her face was burnt, her lips sewn shut with thorny vines, and her eyes were not eyes at all. They were hollow, like dark tunnels into eternity. She didn't speak, but her agony radiated from her body like heat from a furnace. Her charred hand reached out toward Aaron, and in that moment, he understood, she wasn't the only one buried under that tree. There were others, dozens, maybe hundreds. And they were all screaming. He woke up in a cold sweat. Lucas was already up, sitting in the corner of the room, whispering to himself. Aaron rushed over. "What are you saying?" Lucas looked up with vacant eyes. She said, "She's still burning. She won't stop until the fire is shared. Until every root has tasted blood." Aaron turned to Father Joseph the next morning. "How many were burned under that tree?" The priest hesitated. "Miriam. And 12 other women. Accused of sorcery. But the tree absorbed them. Their spirits have become part of it. That's why it's alive." Aaron's voice shook. "So how do we stop it?" Father Joseph replied, "On the night Miriam was burned, the full moon, the tree awakens in its purest form. That night is tomorrow." Father Joseph gathered all he could, old talismans, ash circles, blessed salt, and a ritual text passed down through generations. "This isn't just superstition," he warned them. "If you fail tomorrow night, the tree won't stop at this village. Its roots are hungry, and its reach grows." As night fell the next day, Ravensbrook fell into an eerie silence. Dogs howled and fled, birds vanished from the trees, and the wind sounded like whispers, dozens of voices all murmuring at once. Aaron, Lucas, and Father Joseph approached the tree with their supplies. The moon was full and directly overhead, casting silver light that seemed to focus entirely on the blackened trunk. The tree's branches trembled as if breathing. The air was thick, not with fog, but with despair. They began drawing the salt circle, chanting the incantation. The earth beneath them groaned, and the roots began to shift, moving like living tendrils. Then, Miriam appeared again. Her ghostly form hovered just beyond the circle, her eyes wide open now, mouth dripping ash, her arms stretched as if reaching for justice. She opened her mouth, and though sewn shut, a scream burst forth, not of pain, but fury. The branches of the tree slammed down like giant fists, and the ritual circle flickered. Lucas held up the wooden figure and shouted the prayer, but the figure was snatched by the roots. Everything went black. When Aaron opened his eyes, he found himself alone in a vast forest. The trees were endless, all blackened and bleeding. The ground was soft, almost pulsing like flesh. He called out for Lucas, but only his own voice echoed back. Then he saw them, the women. Miriam, and the 12 others. All burned, all screaming. Their mouths were open, but no sound came out. They encircled him, and as they reached out their hands, his skin began to burn, not physically, but as if their memories were being poured into him. He saw flashes, torches, screaming mobs, ropes, fire. He heard their prayers, their final words. And through all of it, he felt Miriam's rage. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind. "Do you understand now?" Aaron turned. It was Father Joseph, but not the man he knew. His face was twisted, his eyes completely black. "Why?" Aaron asked. "Because I was there," the priest said. "I was the boy who watched them burn. I did nothing. Now the tree has made me its witness." Aaron gasped. "Is there no way to stop it?" "There's only one," Father Joseph said. "Blood for blood. A willing soul must enter the roots and carry their pain into the afterlife. Only then can the tree sleep. Aaron returned to the circle, now reawakened. Lucas was unconscious, his arm wrapped in creeping vines. Father Joseph chanted the last of the verses, his voice growing weak. Aaron stepped forward. "Let me do it. Let me take them." Lucas stirred. "No. You'll die." Aaron smiled faintly. "Maybe. But if we don't, we all die." He stepped into the center of the tree space. The roots opened slowly, revealing a glowing red abyss. The spirits gathered around, not to attack, but to follow. Father Joseph called out, "Speak the final words. Take the vow." Aaron took a deep breath and shouted, "I take their sorrow. I carry their fire. Let the roots drink from me, and be still." The roots wrapped around him gently at first, then pulled him in. A blinding light erupted from the ground. The tree shook violently, its bark cracking and bleeding. The sky screamed with the voices of the damned. Then silence. When the light faded, Aaron was gone. The tree stood still, its branches quiet, the red in its trunk faded to gray, the ground no longer groaned. The roots no longer twitched. Lucas whispered, "He did it. He ended it." Father Joseph placed a hand on his shoulder. He gave them peace. But peace is only until the tree remembers again. Life in Ravensbrück slowly returned to normal. Children began playing near the tree again. Birds returned to perch on the now gray branches. People praised Lucas and Father Joseph for their bravery. The townsfolk believed the curse had finally been lifted, but deep inside, Lucas knew something wasn't right. Nights brought unease. He would often sit by his window and feel an invisible weight pressing against his chest, like something unfinished, something watching. Then one night, as he sat staring into the darkness, he heard footsteps outside. When he looked, he saw a figure standing silently under the tree. The moonlight fell directly on it, but the figure had no face, only a flicker of red where eyes should have been. The next morning, the body of a young villager named Daniel was found at the foot of the tree. His eyes were wide open in terror, and his skin had turned pale gray. A faint mark, like a burning root, was visible on his chest. Father Joseph examined the body in silence. Then he said softly, "The seal. It wasn't enough. It's begun again." Lucas panicked. But Aaron sacrificed himself. "We buried the curse." "Why now?" Father Joseph stared at the ground. "Because we didn't end the curse. We only sealed the surface. Miriam's soul might have passed. But the others? They're still trapped. They're still feeding the tree." Lucas stood frozen. "So, we're not free." "No," Father Joseph said, his voice heavy. "We closed one door, but the others remain wide open." That night, Lucas made a decision. He would return to the tree alone and find the source. He waited until midnight, then walked quietly through the silent village, carrying only a flashlight and the wooden talisman Aaron once held. The closer he got to the tree, the colder it became. The grass was dead. The air smelled of burning wood and old ash. As he knelt to touch the ground, he felt a pulse, not of the earth, but of something alive, moving, breathing beneath the soil. A whisper drifted into his ears, soft and cold, "We are not gone. We never left." Lucas collapsed near the tree, trembling. In his dazed state, he saw visions, not just of Miriam, but of the other women. Their faces blurred, scorched, their mouths stitched with pain. Their spirits were still bound in chains beneath the roots. When he woke, he was inside Father Joseph's cottage. The old man looked exhausted. Lucas recounted what he saw, and Joseph listened carefully. "They were never released," the priest muttered. "Aaron was only one soul. But the tree holds many. And now it wants more." Lucas's voice shook. "How do we release them?" Father Joseph walked to a dusty corner and pulled out an ancient scroll. "There's an old ritual. A communion of souls. Each spirit must be spoken to. Their pain acknowledged, their memory carried. And finally, one pure-hearted person must offer themselves freely, so the spirits can be led out through their sacrifice. Lucas went pale. So it still demands a life? Yes, said Joseph. And this time, it won't just be the tree that feeds. The entire forest has awakened. Lucas agreed. He couldn't let others die. The following night, they prepared for the ritual. Salt circles. Candles. Prayers older than the village itself. Then Father Joseph handed Lucas something new, a relic shaped like a small cross, carved from the first ash tree that ever grew in Ravensbrook. This, he said, can lead the spirits out if your heart remains pure. Lucas returned to the tree. The ground opened for him, not violently, but as if it recognized him. A hollow path revealed itself, descending into the earth like a tunnel of roots and bones. Inside, it was neither hot nor cold. There was no wind, no air, only the sound of breathing trees. Faces emerged from the bark, screaming, whispering, begging. Lucas walked deeper, then a hand grabbed his arm. It was Aaron, but he wasn't Aaron anymore. Aaron's skin had turned pale, almost transparent. His eyes were hollow, and his voice echoed like distant thunder. Lucas. You shouldn't have come. Lucas froze. Aaron, I thought you were gone. Aaron shook his head. I became a gate. The spirits passed through me. But I'm not in control anymore. They twist the soul. The tree remembers every drop of blood. And it's still thirsty. Lucas held up the relic. I came to free them. Aaron looked at the cross. That might work. But only if you go all the way. Once you begin, you cannot turn back. Lucas nodded. I'm ready. Aaron stepped aside, and the path deepened. As Lucas walked, a chorus of voices rose around him, laughter, screams, hymns, and curses. It was no longer a forest. It was a cathedral of pain. At the very center stood the original root, thick, black, coiled like a serpent, pulsing with red light. From it hung the spirits of the 12 women, bound by thorns, surrounded by flames. Lucas stepped into the circle and began to pray. Lucas stood in the heart of the roots, surrounded by the spirits of the 12 women. Their faces flickered in and out of view, burned, torn, and broken. But behind the horror, he saw something else, longing. They weren't monsters, they were prisoners. He held up the carved cross, and it glowed faintly. The spirits recoiled at first, but then leaned toward it, as if drawn to its warmth. Lucas began reciting the names Father Joseph had taught him, names lost in village records but preserved in old prayer chants. One by one, as he spoke each name, a spirit would lift its head, eyes clearing, lips parting. As the final name echoed through the cavern, the great black root trembled. The flames around the spirits dimmed, and the thorns fell away. But the root itself remained alive, coiled, pulsing. Aaron appeared again, kneeling beside it. It's weakening. But it still needs one thing. You know what? Lucas lowered his head. A soul. Aaron nodded slowly. Not just any soul. A willing one. One who walks in, not one dragged. Lucas looked at the relic in his hand, then at the root. He whispered, then let it be me. Suddenly, the earth above cracked, and Father Joseph descended into the chamber, panting, eyes wild. No. You don't have to do this. Lucas turned, tears in his eyes. They're free. But the tree. It still remembers pain. Someone has to carry it. Joseph shouted, there's always another way. Aaron stepped between them. He's right, Father. I've been here. Long enough to know. The tree is a wound. It doesn't want blood anymore, it wants closure. Lucas placed the cross into the center of the root. A white light burst forth, burning into the walls of the tree. The root hissed, then began to unravel, like a serpent slithering into the soil. As the light engulfed him, Lucas whispered, "Let this be the end." And he was gone. The forest trembled. Above ground, trees bent unnaturally. Birds fled in masses, and winds howled as if in mourning. The blood tree cracked straight down its middle, sap gushing like blood, before finally splitting open and collapsing into the earth. Father Joseph emerged from the underground tunnel alone. The ground sealed behind him as if it had never been disturbed. No sign of the root. No sign of Aaron. No trace of Lucas, only silence. The villagers watched from a distance. When Joseph returned, he simply said, "It's done." No one ever spoke of the blood tree again. The land was cleared. A garden was built over it. Children played there without fear. Ravensbrook began to forget. But Joseph never did. Years passed. Father Joseph grew old. The forest remained quiet. But on stormy nights, when the wind howled through the trees, he would sometimes hear voices, soft, distant, like echoes through time. One evening, as he lit a candle in his small chapel, he found a young boy waiting in the pews. Pale, quiet, eyes full of questions. "What's your name, child?" Joseph asked. The boy replied, "My name is Luke." The priest paused. "Do you live here in the village?" The boy shook his head. "Not anymore. I came back. To find something." Joseph stared into his eyes and saw it, the same fire, the same light. Lucas's light, but before he could speak, the boy smiled. "Thank you for saving us." Then he was gone. That night, Joseph had a dream. He walked through the forest, now green and blooming. The tree was there, tall, reborn, full of leaves and life. At its base stood Miriam, unburned, smiling. The other women stood beside her, peaceful, whole. Lucas and Aaron were among them. Joseph dropped to his knees. Miriam spoke, her voice now gentle. "You ended the pain. You remembered us. Now, we can rest." As the morning sun broke over Ravensbrook, Father Joseph passed away in his sleep, a smile on his face, and a single leaf on his chest, red and warm to the touch. In another city, far from Ravensbrook, construction workers dug deep into a hillside to build new roads. One of them found a strange object, a blackened root, still fresh despite the dry earth. He touched it. That night, he dreamed of fire, of women screaming, of a tree that bled and whispered. He didn't return to work the next day. That root was never found again. A historian researching forgotten villages stumbled across a torn record, Miriam of Ravensbrook. Witch or saint? Her curiosity grew. She visited the village, now modernized. Children played in parks. Families laughed. But in the center of the village square stood a statue, not of a man, not of a hero, but of a woman, hands raised, not in fear, but in blessing, no name on the plaque. Only the words, "She burns no more." Generations passed, the story of the blood tree faded into bedtime tales. No one remembered the names. No one feared the forest, but on nights when the moon turned red, and the wind howled too long. Sometimes a child would say, "I heard someone whisper in the trees." And their parents would smile and say, "Just dreams." But some dreams are roots, and roots never die. In a remote garden where children once played, an old man walked with his granddaughter. She ran ahead, laughing, chasing fireflies. Then she stopped suddenly, staring at a small sprout growing alone under the bench. It was dark, its leaves, oddly sharp. "Grandpa," she called. "This plant. It's moving." The old man knelt, touched the leaf, his eyes widened, and somewhere deep in the earth, a heartbeat began again.